James really, really wants to draft Jeremiah Love 10th overall. Let's see if we can in today's mini mock draft.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to a mini episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network in the land. He's James Rapien, I'm Jake Lisco, and today we dive into another two-round mini mock draft Monday for you here on Locked On Bengals, where we've been covering your Cincinnati Bengals going all the way back to 2016. The other episode for you today, we covered, I guess, Sunday afternoon is when that episode went up. Chase Brown and a potential extension for him, looking at Javonte Williams' contract as a comparable deal. And during that conversation, James Rapien, you mentioned your desire for the Bengals to consider Jeremiah Love at 10th overall. And we'll see if we do or do not get that scenario today, because as I mentioned, there is a very real chance that Jeremiah Love is picked long before the Bengals are on the clock at 10. So we'll see what we get here today. We're diving back into the NFL mock draft databases, mock draft simulator here. And we're going to do two rounds, like I said. And just shout out to all the everydayers out there, everyone who makes Locked On Bengals their first listen, joining us here for our second episode of the day, or maybe your first episode of the day, depending on when you listen to these episodes. So let's let this thing run to pick number 10 and see what our options are for the Cincinnati Bengals as we run through another two-round scenario on the mock draft database. I saw at least one tackle go. Looked like you're celebrating, James.
Am I? I didn't see it.
Here? We got
I might be celebrating.
Now Goa, David Bailey, Jordan Tyson, Spencer Cano, Keldrick Falls, Ruben Bain. Oh no, Jeremiah no, to the Kansas City Chiefs, which means, are we just straight up drafting Caleb Downs here?
Oh my God. What are you doing to me? Look. Hey, I'm gonna look right in the camera. Andy Reid, don't make me come to Kansas City. Don't make me come to Kansas City now. You don't want to take that devalued position that is worthless. Jeremiah Love will be so good in Kansas City. They signed Joe Flacco and then he's handing off to Jeremiah Love while Pat is coming back. Anyway, to talk about nightmare scenarios. Yeah, I mean, Caleb Downs is near the top, right, of this scenario. You know, Ruben Bain is gone. David Bailey's gone. You have a guy in Caleb Downs, makes a ton of sense. Sonny Styles in the mix. Both corners in the mix, and I think they will be, right? I think Mansour Delane is going to be very much in the mix. I think that McCoy going to be in the mix, and the health factor, which is huge this week with the NFL Combine, the medicals for Jermod McCoy, the Tennessee corner. But let's be honest here. As much as I would love Mekhi Lemon, and there are scenarios where I think Mekhi Lemon's in the mix here, or Carnell Tate, you could make the arguments in the mix here. One of these offensive weapons is mix here. Am I down with Downs? Sometimes you got to get down with Downs, Jake. And so to me, this is that scenario. It's very comparable, the Jeremiah Love scenario and the Caleb Downs scenario. They're very similar. One is a bigger need. One played for Ohio State, and I think that matters to some people. But ultimately, you want to take the best player. You want someone that can make an instant impact. You want someone that can help change your identity the same way Jamar Chase did, the same way Joe Burrow and T. Higgins did. And that guy could potentially be Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. So, yeah, I would be comfortable with him here in this scenario.
Yeah, we spent some time talking about Caleb Downs with Mike Santagata last week. He's going to probably be Mike's top graded prospect this year. And for a lot of people, this is a player seen as a clear elite player, a player seen as potentially by a lot of people one of the best, if not the best player in the entire draft class. And so it's really a position value issue here. And that's exactly why you bring up the similarities between the Caleb Downs conversation and the Jeremiah Love situation. You're paying two positions where you're not getting a whole lot of surplus value from a monetary perspective if you're allocating just south of $8 million per year to your 10th overall pick. Compare that to a corner, especially compare that to an edge rusher. You're getting potentially a premier talent for just $8 million a year, which, say, at the edge position could cost you 30 million plus per year. Whereas at safety, the elite safeties might be in the high teens, low 20s, maybe by the time Caleb Downs is at the end of his rookie deal. And then you're talking about needing to extend a player at a position where the Bengals have not been able to get that done in recent history when they drafted and developed one in Jesse Bates. So if it's Caleb Downs here, you have to be on board for the versatility, for the impact that he can make on your defense, and the idea that you would extend Caleb Downs if he is the player you expect him to be if you pick him 10th overall. Coming up next, we will get into the second round here of the mock draft simulator. We're going to pick Caleb Downs and let this thing run. And we'll figure out where we go in the second round coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by TurboTax. And TurboTax, well, it's here. TurboTax season, well, it makes tax season that much easier. TurboTax full service is going to have you taken care of. No stress, no guesswork, no wondering, oh my goodness, did I do this right? Well, TurboTax can handle it all for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish. Take out all of the worry, all of the concern, all of the time. Don't spend hours trying to figure out forms. Don't wonder, think, and say, oh man, is this how I do it? Is this how I file it? TurboTax can do all of that for you. And here's the beauty of it. From W-2s to self-employed forms, they'll handle it all. They'll get you every deduction. And right now, for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in when you didn't file with a TurboTax expert last year. All you have to do is get to TurboTax by February 28th. That's February 28th. The clock is ticking. Go there now. TurboTax.com/local. TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today.
If you've ever wanted to be to the NBA Finals in person, like my co-host James Rapine, who is desperate to go to the NBA Finals in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And all you have to do is use your profit boost on any NBA future. You'll be automatically entered to win a shot at the NBA Finals, a trip for two that includes flights, tickets, the entire experience with FanDuel. And if you're already looking at the board thinking about which team is going to make that run in the NBA playoffs this year, it's the perfect time to lock it in and get entered for a chance to go see that team in the finals as well. You can get that chance, that extra layer of excitement for every game down the stretch with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, Jake, we're on the clock and safeties are there. Let's start there. We're at pick 41. We've taken Caleb Downs. In an ideal world, you wouldn't take Caleb Downs 10. If you could get Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at 41, Dylan Thieneman at 41, I don't think either of these guys are going to be there. They might not make it out of the first round. They've gotten a lot of buzz as of now. And so I'm still very much comfortable with taking Downs at 10. Thieneman may be a top 20 pick. I think McNeil-Warren may be a first rounder. And there are others that think McNeil-Warren's ahead of Thieneman. Regardless, both of these guys are available here. Would you consider taking one after taking Downs? Would you do that if they fell all the way to 41, even though we're not expecting them to?
I don't know how strongly you could really consider it at that point. I mean, it depends on what they do in free agency, right? We're doing this before the combine, before free agency, all those things. But they would have to have really addressed the defensive line, really addressed the linebacker position, really addressed all these things. Yeah. That being said, I don't know how much we're really considering those positions here, given what's available. And you don't want to be too guided by need, right? And when we look at the top players available, it looks like the edge class has really been picked over at this point. When we look at the top guys available at edge, is Gabe Akis from Illinois, Derek Moore from Michigan, Joshua Josephs from Tennessee, Romello Height from Texas Tech. And I think it's a little bit early for a lot of these guys. Maybe you consider them here, maybe not. You look at corner. This is a position where, I mean, just a premium position, right? You can see the Bengals invest here. We talked about it in the first round. If they do enough on defense because they consider a corner, Chris Johnson, a really interesting name from San Diego State, D'Angelo Pons, obviously undersized, but extremely interested and talented player from Indiana, despite that size. You look at the interior defensive line, Lee Hunter and Christian Miller both really stand out here. And then the other position that I think I would talk about is looking for a potential left tackle of the future, Blake Miller. And I don't know how to say his last name yet, so I'm going to call him Max, the offensive tackle, right tackle from Arizona State, who I thought had a really good game against David Bailey when Arizona State saw David Bailey in Texas Tech earlier this season or last season. So those are some guys that I would be thinking about here, just looking at who's available. What are your thoughts as you consider the second round option?
Yeah, I think when you pick Caleb Downs in round one, you're hoping that an edge or a defensive tackle, that someone's going to be there, that it's a trench pick. I'm trench man for a reason. And so you're banking on that. D'Angelo Pons is tempting, man, because you think about it, you're like, man, DJ Turner, Dax Hill, D'Angelo Pons, Caleb Downs, you're really rolling. Probably a free agent safety. Jordan Battle is your third safety in this scenario, which bottom line is before draft day, they better have signed a starting safety. So that's why I'm saying that. Like, you feel awesome about your secondary. But I can't go with Pons when Downs may play some of that for you. Right? He's got that versatility. He's got that ability to do that. And who knows who you sign at safety in free agency. So to me, the Lee Hunter, Christian Miller, who do you prefer out of those two? We talked about that a little bit last week before we ultimately went with the safety that we don't think is going to be here at 41 anyway. So yeah, to me, it's Hunter and Miller. You get one of those two guys. There's no edge that stands out. Unfortunately, some of the other guys that almost got there, like McDonald, who I think out of Ohio State, who's probably going to be a first rounder anyway. He got the middle of the 30s, but didn't get all the way to the Bengals. Like those are the type of guys. Banks out of Florida. If he gets there at 41, I'm down with taking Banks in banking on those physical traits and those flashes and him being healthy and all of those things. That being said, yeah, I think Lee Hunter and Christian Miller, I'm down to those two.
Yeah, I don't have a necessarily strong opinion between these two guys as of today, before the combine, before I've gotten a chance to watch a ton of them. I know Lee Hunter is a couple years older than Christian Miller. I know that Georgia defensive linemen are exposed to some really challenging concepts in college, might be more pro ready or might be more adept to adapting to the pro game. And it really comes down to which of these guys you think is going to be able to do more in the future for you as a pass rusher, I think, because both of them would come into the league, I think, pretty set at as potentially plus pieces in the run defense part of their game right away. I think we could just go Lee Hunter here. He is going to be a higher player by consensus right now. We'll see how these guys test. I think that if you ask me in a couple of weeks, I could land on Christian Miller. Christian Miller is a player that I'm pretty interested in seeing where he lands in the draft, seeing where he lands in terms of his NFL future. But if we don't go interior defensive line here, I do think there's a pretty steep fall off until you get to Grayson Halton, whose data profile looks really good. Looks like he can be a potential pass rushing piece for you in the future. I think you're talking about that third round at the earliest, maybe even fourth round. And again, we'll see how these guys test. But you could just say, you know what, you're getting Lee Hunter in the second round because you're getting a discount because he's coming into the league a little bit older. I also think that I would be sympathetic to some people who are saying, man, you're really not getting an impact player here because maybe you see Lee Hunter more as just a nose tackle in the NFL. He did have decent pass rushing data going for him. And there's a chance that that can hit a little bit. If you're looking for more of the upside pick, the guy that might be able to develop that part of his game a little bit more, another guy that could be a really good athlete, and Christian Miller, maybe you go that way instead. But they're fairly compelling arguments both ways here. And I don't have a super strong feeling between these two guys as of today on February 22nd.
Fair, and that's fair. Here's why I think we should go with Christian Miller, because I would call Marius Mims and be like, hey, man, can Christian Miller, is he a baller? Yes or no? And Amarius is going to be like, yeah, he's a baller. No, he's not. Or he's this or that. No, in all seriousness, obviously plenty of time to play it out. They need impact in the defensive line room. I think we nailed it with one of these two guys. Let's go with Miller. Let's go with the young Georgia Bulldog. They like Georgia Bulldogs. Let's go with Miller.
You can talk me into it. A little bit better pass rushing data in college too. And he's younger. He's going to be 2 years younger than Lee Hunter. Well, for his entire life, because that's how date of births work. So we'll go Christian Miller in the second round and a couple of defensive players for the Cincinnati Bengals in today's mock draft Monday. Until next time, we appreciate you listening to this mini episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.